So there are two ways to take data out of Persimmony. One is through the export module and one is through the reports. So we'll start by looking in the report section. Now there are several types of report groups. First is the performance group, which allows you to take data out regarding performance measures. Client detail reports are client information that include identifiers such as name and date of birth. Client summary has client data without those identifiers. We don't have any custom reports at the moment. Fiscal reports, I've never used, but I believe our contracts team does. And program reports, I think, are particularly helpful when it comes time for the state annual report submission because it allows you to see the programs by result area, which programs have data in them and which don't, and what kind of data. So when it comes time to the state annual report submission in October, due every October 31st, I think it would be helpful to work with Persimmony to review these reports to see which would be most helpful for that submission process. There are also monitoring and security reports, which I've never used. So the first thing to do when running a report is select which report group to use. I'll just click on the client summary. And then I select the type of report I want to run. So let's say I'm running a report to show me summarized results of assessments. Once I click the name of the report, a number of filters pop up. And it's important that those filters are completed completely and accurately, especially if you're running the same report over time. Because depending on which reports are selected, of course, you could get a different result. So let's say I want to run this report for an FRC. You can select either one or multiple programs by selecting using Shift. And you can also use Control to select multiple at a time. So let's say I just want to use one FRC and I go back and I want to specify which assessment I want this report for. So let's say I want ASQ information. You have to select both the group and the assessment title. Let's say I don't want to change any of my other filters. They all look good. And then Preview will run the report for me. So after I run this report, I can expand it, and I see this gives me a summary of responses for the 16 assessments in the filter for this program. At this point, I could either print, export, or apply an advanced filter. So there are actually more filters available to you in addition to the ones we already selected. So let's say we only want to look at those with who had a certain person who entered them. I usually don't use advanced filters, but I just wanted to show you that they are available. And once you either export or do what you need with this report, you can go ahead and close it and run another one. So when it comes to reports, the most important thing is to be sure that the filters are completed accurately. I want to specify that for the client reports that have a date filter, unless otherwise specified, it only pulls from clients with a service in that time period. Of course, in our last example, it was a report on assessments. So the date for the assessment report referred to those with an assessment in that date. But unless you're running an assessment report, and if it's not specified, the default is that it only includes clients with a service in that time frame. That's important to note because it only includes services, not assessments. So if someone has an assessment and not a service, they might not show up in your report. So it's really important to know who's being pulled for that report. Persimmony is in the process of creating reports that allow you to take any active client, that means service or referral. But right now, most of the client reports are only for those with services unless otherwise specified. So as I mentioned, another way to take data out is through the export module. Now the difference is these exports are more or less just raw data with fewer filters, and it's not formatted. It gets exported directly into Excel. The exports that I use most often are export client active as the first one, and client assessment by answer value. I use client active because, like I just mentioned, a lot of the reports pull only clients within a service, and sometimes I want to have any active client, not just those with a service. So I find this export pretty useful. And the other one is the client assessment by answer value, because it allows me to pull assessment data that's organized with each row as one assessment, which is a little bit cleaner than when you export assessments out of the reports. In the reports area, if you export an assessment, every row will be a response to the assessment. So you end up with a very long file. So I find pulling out assessment data through this export is a little bit easier. Again, you have a few filters and you select what you want for the program that you want. And once you hit OK, it will begin the assessment, the export process for you.